And so when you look at people now that have not been enterprise sellers, but they want to be enterprise sellers, what would be the advice like for them, or how would you take a chance on somebody if they've never done that before to bring them on board to the company that's growing and teach them how to do it? Like, how would you go around that?
So I think there's a couple of things. So one is, and I talk a lot every year or so. I get the privilege of talking with a bunch of TCU students, and I have this conversation, right? And it's one is that like it's going to depend on the risk propensity that your business has, right? Big public companies will take less of a chance on people, not all the time, but most of the time, than a startup will, right?
Yep.
So you need to figure that out. And the big things I tell people to develop are, one, like a financial acumen, because Warren Buffett says it, right? Accounting is the language of business. And really at the end of the day, finance is the language of sales, right? Because if you're selling something large enough, then that's what you're talking about. You're talking about internal rates of return. You're talking about hurdle rates. You're talking about net present value. You're talking about all of that important stuff at the end of the day. And so you want to get a basic financial acumen. I look for people that really love playing games, because at the end of the day, like, the job of the enterprise seller is to figure out what game you're playing. And you're not going to be necessarily playing the game you want to play. You're playing whatever game the customer is playing. You want to figure out the game, and you want to figure out all the rules to the game, right? So what's the evaluation? What's the buying process? What's the timing on it? Who are all the players in it? Do you have procurement? Do you have legal? Do you have engineering? Do you have an incumbent, right? Like, who are all the players on the game? And then you want to figure out the rules, and you want to constantly be evaluating that. So I love people that love playing Settlers of Catan, that grew up playing Monkey Island, that play StarCraft and all this like crazy strategic stuff, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's a big strategic game.
Interesting. Financial acumen, playing games.
Yeah. And then you want people that are really comfortable being uncomfortable and that like telling stories, right? Interesting people make really good enterprise sellers. Like, I talk to these enterprise sellers, and a lot of the best ones have lived really interesting lives. Like, they've done cool stuff. Like, they did random things early in their career. Like, they were a DJ, or they had friends that they traveled all over the world and did stupid stuff. They worked in the military. They worked they worked in the oil patch. Like, they have things that people are willing to engage on and have fun with, right? They're not people that have done like the most boring, normal things. I can't think of a single enterprise seller I know that's successful that's not just like a really interesting person to begin with.
That is so interesting. You're saying that. Recently, I just had an interviewed a candidate for one of our clients, and he was one of those enterprise kind of sellers, and he was so interesting. Like, my job as an interviewer is never get involved too much with the candidate, but he was so interested that I kept like not slapping myself. I'm like, okay, stay out of it. Like, but he's like pulling you in the story all the time. And those are like, I'm like, the clients are going to eat it up. Like, they're going to be like, they're going to love it. They're going to love having dinner with him. It's just going to be like, but you have to be mindful of, he was really good at telling the story that was tied to whatever question we asked. Not just like some random boring stories. Like, they had to be tied somehow. So
definitely.
Fascinating. So comfortable with being uncomfortable. You said that multiple times.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to like what makes a great enterprise salesperson? Because I have questions about.
Yeah, they're willing. I learned this from Jim Steele. Jim Steele is president of Salesforce. I've had the privilege of talking to him on the phone like a few times. And I asked him when I was really early in my career, I was like, what do you look for? He's like, you got to have somebody that can bird dog it. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, he's like, you don't need someone that knows all the answers. Oftentimes that person is actually less valuable. You want the person that can go find all of the answers for you and for the client. And that person that will just maniacally manage the process, like play the game and will be humble enough to say, I have no clue. I don't know the answer to that. Could be a technical thing, could be a contractual thing, could be anything, but I will go find that out for you. The best people can do that all day long inside of an organization. They're willing to be the ignorant person that's willing to work hard for the solution and get it done. Because I remember I asked him, I was like, he's like, I've had 2 or 3 of my guys come into the company that he was at the time. And the first 90 days, they've done the biggest deals this company has ever seen. I was like, how? And he's like, they understand how to play the game, and they know how to bird dog things and just go find answers and find solutions.
Did you say bird dog?
Bird dog. Yeah. It's like, it's a
American
hunting summit, right? Where if you have a bird dog and you're out here in Texas and you go dove hunting or you go duck hunting,
gotcha.
you'll have your dogs with you that will like walk into a field and they'll get all the birds to fly out, and then they'll go find the bird after you harvest it. So,
interesting. Well, so to me it's fascinating because that's the bridge, right? Everybody wants enterprise salesperson, but very few people want to pay, especially when they're growing, pay for the good enterprise salesperson, right? So how do you see what are because there's plenty of people who want to jump from being a sales executive of mid-size or whatever to enterprise. So this is an interesting bridge to look for the skill set to build them up and kind of hire them.
Two thoughts there. One is if I was talking to a friend that was a CEO of a company that had a limited budget and was looking to bring on people, I would tell them to look for people. Number one, they're coachable and they're humble. They're not whiny, they're humble. There's a difference, right? They're coachable, they're humble, and they really want to learn, and they have a track record of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Track record of learning on the job and expanding from there. The other thing I'll say is some of the best enterprise, if you look at my career for becoming an enterprise seller, it did not start and end in tech, right? There was that divergence into solar for 5 years. There are a ton of incredible enterprise salespeople. And I say this for you, for clients, 90% of the economy is not tech.
Right.
Tech makes up about 10% of the US GDP today. The rest is everything else, right? And there are so many amazing salespeople that sell millions and millions and millions of dollars of deals, bigger than any AWS contract that's ever going to be out there, that sell capital equipment, that sell aircraft, that sell avionics, all kinds of stuff, right? And don't limit yourself to one thing, right? Because I have friends that are CEOs of massive, industrial businesses, and they'll hire from anywhere. And and guess what? Those guys make more money than freaking most people.
I will record it and I will play this for all the prospects that come to me and say,